Now, when I say my race, I really do mean our race. But I have ownership of it because you're not always with me. Many of you are in support of me. Many of you have given me money. Many of you have been my friends. Many of you have been advisors. Many of you love me. I carry all that with me all the time. And I can't thank you enough for the support that you gave me in the last race. The only race I've ever run for political office. But there are some important things to know about what we all did together in 2014 when I ran for Congress as a Green. And very simply put, what we did was we did something no one else in the country has done. And that's we got 11%. When non-corporate candidates run against a Democrat and a Republican, and let's bear in mind this is one of the largest congressional districts in the country. It is the largest east of the Mississippi. Okay, 4 hours each way, north, south, east, west. You can only cover it by spending millions of dollars buying up advertising, because you cannot shake all those hands. This is not Brooklyn. This is not the Bronx. You're not going to have a congressional district that's 6 blocks. It doesn't work that way here. So they buy our seat all the time. And we all know it, and we're all sick and tired of it, no matter what our political beliefs are, honestly. And all we really want is somebody who actually kind of understands and lives the same kind of life we do to run for office so they can represent us in Congress. Because that's what Congress is supposed to be, the House of Representatives. Not the House of corporate lobbyists, not the House of defense contractor employees, not the House of people who are owned by the military-industrial congressional complex, but the House of Representatives. Now, who do they represent? I say this all the time on the campaign trail. I don't mind corporate America, or more typically now, the corporate multinationals, having a seat at our governmental table. I don't mind if they have a certain percentage of elected officials who are going to state this is what the corporations want. That's fine. But who are the majority? You know, because they have every single seat in the House and Senate. 535 millionaires. That's what we have as representation. The working class, to me, I look around us, I look at all the places I've lived in the United States, and I can't think of a place where it was much different than maybe 80-20. And 80 was the working class and 20 was the middle class, and I really didn't see very many people from the ruling class because I was living in a working class area or a rural area. And I asked myself, how is it they have 100% of the representation? How do the 1% have that? There's a really simple answer. It's because we vote for them. It's that simple. That's the power that the Green Party's been talking about for 25 years, that America is very much starting to wake up to. Not just in this cycle, not just because Bernie is trying to cause an insurgency within the Democratic Party, not just because Donald Trump bought his way into beating out all the Koch brothers candidates. I mean, this is not the year of the fake outsider. It actually could be the year of the real insider. We're the insiders. We're the 80%. It's 83% technically. And I'm just saying, why don't we actually vote for people who represent the 83%? And the problem is because they don't run for office. Well, I am running for office. I will represent you. I do need your votes. I do need your money. Not a lot of it. We ran a race on $38,000 against a filmmaker whose wife has a $50 million savings account, trust fund. He spent $1.6 million of it, if I am not mistaken. Maury probably knows the exact number. But then we also ran against a Republican who was being propped up by Karl Rove and by Singer Pack and by Paul Ryan and the Koch brothers. And you ask yourself why we don't have representation. It's because the Democrats and Republicans both continue to put up candidates who don't work and who probably never have a day in their lives. They don't know what it's like to be in the working class. They don't get it. They can't represent us. And I don't say that to say we're better than they are. We're just different. We have different needs. And one of them is that we don't want to live in a Walmart. That's their vision for our society, is that everything is about squeezing and oppressing and screwing over people, to use the vernacular. And that's not okay with me. I don't think it's okay with you guys, is it?
No.
No. So why vote for me? Well, the thing Because it's easy to vote. It's not so easy to get somebody to run. Because they will shut down your business if you're a small business person like I am, and I will promise you that my political activism has cost me on those levels numerous times. You know, when all of a sudden a state or federal agency you've never seen before comes knocking on your door the day after you say Andrew Cuomo thinks he's Caesar in the paper. I wonder why that happened. It's just a coincidence. Well, we all know I'm a conspiracy theorist, so I'm just saying that I don't care about it anymore. If I have to go live in a tent and run for office, I will, because it's time for us to have representation. I could not care less where I do it from. If I have to do it on a bicycle, I'll do that too. But I'm asking you, please support me in that. That's not desperate, it's not crazy, it's not me doing something that the rest of you shouldn't be doing. You should all be running for office too. And if you don't feel you have that skill set, you should talk to the person you know in your circle who does. And you should say, why aren't you running for office? Why are we letting those people do this? Why? And to me, the answer is very simple. You have an out. We don't have to have a revolution in this country to have $15 living wage. It's not even a living wage. Look at that. See, that's probably work right there. It's actually not. It's the woman I love more than anybody else in the world. I just didn't answer it. I'm going to be in trouble later, and your children are here witnessing me saying this too. Don't tell on me, please. But essentially, you're not going to have $15 an hour if we don't realize that actually cost of living would have us at $16.50 if we'd kept up with that. We also don't realize that if worker productivity, which is far more important, was the gauge by which we assessed the minimum wage, it would be $23.50. Would you like to make $23.50? I sure as hell would, and I don't. And that's because my products, as somebody who makes something from scratch on a daily basis with a crew of people who do the same thing without health insurance and without an adequate amount of money, is because we're subsidizing with our income tax, which is unconstitutional, and I believe that as a Green. Bottom line is we're subsidizing Walmart. We're subsidizing the goods that are going in there. We're subsidizing the free trade deals. We are subsidizing the distribution. The food that's being sold there is all subsidized. You know, the beef and pork are being raised on public lands. All of the soy that's being used to feed those animals is subsidized. Do we have any idea how socialist our mechanism, our economy, our society already is? It's just not socialist for us down here at the bottom, the majority. We don't get the benefit of that socialism unless you call eating poisoned food at Walmart and paying $2 for it and getting a job there which you get paid $8 or $9 an hour for justice. It's not. You know, if my business and my workers and I did not have to carry Walmart and McDonald's and GE around on our backs, and we made $15 an hour, and we had single-payer health care, which would be free. This isn't pie-in-the-sky socialism. Single-payer healthcare is really simple. The Wool Handler study shows us that in 2006, in the United States, we were spending $6,000 in public money per American. $6,000 is already $2,000 more than any other industrialized nation is paying for better healthcare than we already have. So why don't we have free healthcare and save the $2,000? That's universal. I don't get it. Well, you get it if you know what Big Pharma is. You get it if you know what an HMO is. You get it if you understand how the insurance companies have been deregulated and are sponsoring your representatives who go to the House of Representatives in the Senate and say, oh, we can't have single payer. That's pie in the sky. Yeah, it's pie in the sky because you're putting all that money in your pockets and it's going into the CEO's hands, stockholders. There are simple answers to all the problems we have. You know, to me, the major one is that we have to stop thinking they're not possible. They're only not possible if you go out and vote for a Democrat or Republican tomorrow, or in November, or next November. Just please stop doing it. Because if you do, we'll have a revolution overnight. And if we do, on a last note, we'll also know by the time November comes around this year, and you have an opportunity to vote for 3 candidates within the state, and 2 at the federal level, one of whom is sitting in the room right now, and one of whom is talking to you, you can vote for people who actually work for a living. You can vote for people who already care, who are already on your side, and you could get them elected. Bernie has shown us that. the mainstream media is now starting to pay a lot of attention because of this whole year of the outsider thing. You know, they're going to pay attention. So the question to ask yourself is lesser evilism really the route you want to take? No, it's not. And young people are starting to get that. And they're starting to get it because they don't share the sense of futility that my generation has carried. Many of the people I know just don't care. They say, if you worry about politics, you're an idiot, because it's all bought and sold. And I say, yeah, all the more reason to get involved in that fight and engage and change it. So that's not how it's supposed to be. Let's reinterject principle into our representation. And is that such a crazy idea?
No.
You're all supposed to sell it. Yeah, no, it's not. It's awesome, man. Woo! You guys really blew it. We're not going to have a revolution doing that. I know I was only supposed to talk for probably about 3 minutes, and it's probably been about 35 already.
Surprise,
so
surprise.
I'm going to cede the floor. Surprise. But I'm going to ask you on that anecdotal level. My friend Jeremy did a little bit of research and found out that in our congressional district, in 1856, we had the first Republican congressional representatives elected in United States history. There were 12 elected that year, I believe. 4 of them were in what is now our district. Now that may not mean much to you right off the cuff, but what you have to realize is the Republicans were a third party, and 4 years later, Lincoln was elected as the first third party president in American history. That was a watershed moment, don't forget it. The people who did it were your descendants. No. Thank you very much. They were the really old people who gave birth to your parents and parents before them. But what that means is that same John Brown streak that most of us carry who lived through the winters or used to have as winters in upstate New York, we all might fight with each other during the day, but at nighttime when it gets to be 20 below, we all sit around each other's fire and share the cider. And that commonality and that sharing and that sense of community makes us hard people. It also makes us really loving, caring people who are very principled. And that was an anti-slavery movement. That's what that was. It was that single issue that elected those people. The people who are going to speak to you tonight after me are saying the same thing. It almost doesn't matter what we stand for as long as you know we're one of you and we're being honest and we're not taking corporate money and we want to represent you. We are you. That's what we're telling you. And I hope you listen very carefully to what they have to say. They're all amazing people. So I will reintroduce Delbert again. Who is one of the co-chairs of the Warren County Green Party. I would ask you to make your way over to my campaign table, and if you can throw us a little bit of money, that's great, but we're really here to raise money for Jill tonight. So primarily what I'd like you to do is consider wearing a button or getting a bumper sticker or a lawn sign, of which we do actually have some, just like the big boys. So thank you very much. That's a tough act to follow.
I put some poison in that water there.
I don't
It's the peel for weird. You know, those PCBs. Anyway, the next speaker we have going on tonight is Robin Barkenhagen.
I thought it was Steve.
No, it's Steve.
Is it Steve?
Yep.
It is Steve.
Steve Ruzbacki. I need a mnemonic device. Thank you.
It's an incredible privilege to be here this evening on this historic occasion. Things are really breaking across this country. So honored to be in front of you all. My campaign is going to rest firmly on the 4 planks of the Green Party platform. Grassroots democracy. That's what the Green Party stands for. It's what it's fought for. If you look at the history of what's happened just in the last 15 years in this district, you know, it was actually thugs from this district who, in Florida, in the 2000 election, prevented the ballots from being counted. Those were Republican operatives of John Sweeney. Did the Democrats challenge that? No. But what party challenged it in the Supreme Court? It was the Greens. It was not the Democrats, it was the Greens. If you look at how things actually work, do we have a separation of powers in this area as the Constitution provides? I would say no. We have a lot of positions here that under the New York State Constitution are supposed to be democratically elected positions. But how does it actually work? It works through the county political parties who have all sorts of quid pro quo arrangements to basically keep people in power no matter what the election results are. As your state senator, it's something that's got to stop. I mean, one thing I'm going to be standing up for consistently is for grassroots democracy across this state. So the Green Party, free and fair elections. We've all just been witness to what the so-called Democratic Party considers free and fair elections. And that's not how the Green Party operates. Social justice. Social justice, when you look at the absolutely unacceptable disparity in income across this district, the fact that we have a two-tiered economy, we have an economy of those who serve the people who live here, and it seems like we have a whole lot of folks who want this to just be a playground for the wealthy. That is not what the Adirondack Park is supposed to be. This is a grand experiment. And it's a wonderful thing what has happened, what New York State has done here. But we need to strengthen the park. We need people on any issue who have a seat at the table because of their passion, because of their concern. Right now, I know myself, when I've gone to talk to my representatives, and I'll leave their names out, but I know when I've gone to talk about single payer, I've been laughed at. I don't think people who want to make things better should be laughed at. I don't think the amount of... I don't think you should be heard based on how fat your wallet is.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's right.
Another plank in the Green Party platform is for peace. So what we have political parties, both of them. And when we had Bill Owens in the House, he said, we can't downsize our prisons because it's jobs that we need here in the North Country. So I wrote his office. Saying I thought that was just a reprehensible stand for somebody to take. And I got a form letter back thanking me for supporting his position of keeping orthodox. And then, although I haven't read a whole lot about it, but I did find out, I do believe he left Congress to enter that revolving door of corporate lobbying. Is that democracy? Is that social justice?
Hell no.
No.
No, it's not. So we're going to break corporate control of Albany, just like Jill's going to break corporate control in Washington, Jill and Matt. And we're going to do it, not in the future, we're going to do it now.
Now! Right now!
The final plank that I rest my campaign on is that of ecological wisdom. And certainly we here have a lot to be concerned about. The science is out there. I'm not going to go into the science. Even though I'm an earth science teacher, I know it's just shocking and outrageous that people who deny and create doubt get a huge platform, when you actually have to dig to find what scientists all over the world are doing. But we are blessed to live in a country that has the NOAA, that has wonderful climatologists. We have wonderful people in government. We have wonderful people who are trying to work inside the system. But as has been pointed out earlier, we are not going to have the kind of revolutionary change that we need from inside the system. These issues are all linked together, and I think there's a big movement to keep us from seeing how they're connected. We have to connect the dots for ourselves because they're not being connected for us, but the evidence is out there right under our eyes. When it comes to ecological wisdom, I know right in my town, there's a wonderful person, many of you know because he builds great Adirondack guide boats. It's Peter Hornbeck. He should be on the Adirondack Council. Personally, I believe that moneyed interests are the reason that he's not there. Politics has gotten in the way. We don't want a true conservationist who really cares about protecting the park in that position. We want somebody that's going to give deference to the corporate and real estate interests that stand to make money from the private land in the park. So there's lots more I could say, but I just appreciate all of you being here. I appreciate your support, and we've got a great slate. So, as Matt said, I'll repeat it, be brave, vote green in 2016.
Wow, that was a great speech. Now our next speaker is Rob Barkenhagen. He's running for New York Assembly, and here he is.
Thank you all for coming out today. It's really great to see so many people getting involved. The American spring has sprung.
Yeah.
We've all heard of the Arab Spring. Well, now it's our turn. It's our turn to take on the evil empire and return true democracy to the people. The American voter has awoken from its long winter of corruption and fear-mongering to find a new season. A season of change. A chance to plant new seeds, an opportunity to grow a new crop of politicians unspoiled by the toxic dirt of their predecessors. A new generation of green leaders, ready to take back our government one seat at a time. My name is Robin Barkenhagen, and I'm running for the New York State Assembly from the 114th District.
Woo!
Yes.
I've been a member of the Green Party since 2001, and being inspired by Nader, Hawkins, West, Funiciello, Stein, and all the others that have come before me, I am proud to be part of the solution and part of the real political revolution. How are we going to do this? First, we start by changing the way we do business in Albany. Ethics and campaign finance reform need to be a priority. With the recent convictions of 2 legislative leaders, there has never been a better time for change, and the people of New York demand that change. We need to get the special interest out of politics, and we can do this by instituting publicly funded elections. If you don't know who's funding your campaign, then you won't be beholden to anybody once you're in office. As Greens, we don't accept corporate contributions, putting ourselves in the difficult position of running campaigns with considerably less money than our opponents. Publicly funded elections would level the playing field and allow elections to be won or lost on the issues, not on the barrage of negative ads designed to distract you from those very issues.
That's right.
One of the most important issues we're currently facing is drinking water. With the discovery of PFOAs in Hoosick Falls, and surrounding communities, along with the discovery of lead in the Flint, Michigan water supply, New Yorkers need to know that their water is safe. Currently, the Department of Health only requires testing for lead and copper every 3 years. I say we should have that test done every year.
Right. Absolutely.
The PFOA issue is a little more complicated. The EPA has set their acceptable level of PFOAs at 100 parts per trillion. New York State recently set the level at 70 parts per trillion, while neighboring Vermont has theirs set at 20 parts per trillion. If I had to choose, I would certainly go with Vermont's assessment, erring on the side of caution. But since we don't know the long-term health effects, I don't think there should be any PFOAs in our water at all.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right.
believe we need a $15 an hour minimum wage. And even though I'm a small business owner, and it would adversely affect my bottom line, I still think it's the right thing to do. I believe we can come up with a compromise. I'd like to see tax incentives for the small business owners to offset the cost of the raise. New York ranks 39th in the cost of doing business, so any help the state could give us would go a long way. But an increased minimum wage would mean more money in our communities, more sales tax for our municipalities. Thus, that would allow the state to collect fewer sales taxes on small businesses without having to cut any programs. We need to fully fund our schools. Our future depends on it. The 2016 New York State budget took some positive steps, particularly getting rid of the gap elimination adjustment. But we can do more. We need to trust and empower our teachers to do their job, and we need to give our children all the tools they need to succeed. We should be teaching common sense, not Common Core. I believe we need to make single-payer health care the law in New York State.
Yep.
I fully support the New York Health Act sponsored by Assemblyman Gottfried, and I hope the New York State Senate will soon adopt it as well. No one should go bankrupt because they got sick. No one should have to choose between paying for their prescriptions or buying food. Say that again, Matt?
I know a state senator candidate who would vote for it if we elect.
Yes, I do. We do. We should have a moratorium on all the oil trains passing through New York State until they can find a safe way to transport it.
Woo! Yes.
The recent derailments of an ethanol train in the Kenwood Yard in Albany underscores the need for such a ban. And I also believe not only do we need to continue the ban on hydrofracking, but we should ban any fracked oil from passing through New York State. We need to rebuild our crumbling roads, bridges, water and sewer systems. We can create good paying jobs and help avoid the failures that have plagued our towns and cities, like the water main break in Lansingburg last January. We need to encourage our municipalities to adopt sustainable energy solutions. Solar, wind, and hydroelectric energy are the best ways to guarantee a good future for all New Yorkers. And through grants, loans, and tax incentives, we can usher our towns and cities into the 21st century. We should be making it easier for municipalities to launch clean energy projects and not hampering them with restrictions and red tape. The Compassionate Care Act was another good first step, though I believe we need to expand the medical marijuana program to accommodate more patients. As of April 18th of this year, there were only 539 prescribing physicians statewide and less than 3,000 patients. I call on the New York State Department of Health to release that list of prescribing physicians, which is currently unavailable to the patients and to the companies that produce and sell the medicine. I would like to see the advancement of the bill, and now I haven't seen the news today. They were talking about it. They actually might advance in this session that would allow physicians' assistants and nurse practitioners to prescribe the medicine as well. And finally, thank you. And finally, I'd like to see the list of conditions expanded to include chronic pain, Alzheimer's, muscular dystrophy, post-traumatic stress disorder, and rheumatoid arthritis.
Oh my God, of course.
I also believe it's time to legalize recreational marijuana in New York State. Not only could we use the tax money, Colorado took in $70 million in tax revenue last year. But we could release low-level, non-violent offenders from our overcrowded prisons and redirect our resources into fighting the real problem, the opioid and heroin problems in the community.
Right.
New York State recently allocated $166 million to fight the opioid and heroin use in New York State. And I hope that money goes to expand treatment like they say it's gonna, and not back into enforcement, which clearly doesn't help. These are the issues that New Yorkers care about. And these are the issues that the corporations, the lobbyists, and the drug companies want ignored. We, the people, can no longer sit silently by and let our government be run by the special interests. We need to awaken from this long winter's nap. We need to climb on our soapboxes and our rooftops and shout for all to hear, this is our government, and we're taking it back.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I hope if you're a registered green, you come over and sign our petitions afterwards. And now I'd like to move on with the program. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. My name is Valerie Epstein, and I am a member of the Warren County Green Party. And I cannot tell you what an honor it is to host Jill Stein, presidential candidate for the United States. And we're just so happy that you're here and that she's here and that we can provide this program for you. I don't have any particular skills or expertise. I've never been involved in politics before until in 2014 I had a Facebook friend named Matt. And he would start these really provocative discussions online, and damn it, I would just get sucked into these conversations. And before you know it, I met him in person, and I found out that he was running for Congress. And so I went to an informational meeting just to find out a little bit more about him and about his campaign, and I liked what I heard. And he said, you know what, I could really use volunteers on my campaign. Again, I had no particular skills. I didn't really know what I could offer to the campaign, except that I could show up. And you know what? That's what I did. I showed up. And so if they needed me to make a poster, I kind of got a kick out of it, because that public power is people power.
Yeah.
That's a poster I made for Matt's 2014 campaign. That was what I brought to the table. And so in those months, I got to participate in a lot of ways. I went out and helped gather petition signatures and made posters and marched in parades, went to candidate forums, and I got other people to volunteer with me. And before you know it, we had a group of people who are committed to the Green Party and Green Party candidates. And over the last 2 years, after the 2014 election, we got together and we said, you know what? What if we built a structure and had an actual Warren County Green Party in place so that other people might run for office? And wouldn't you know it, we now have a full slate of candidates. And here's the most important thing I want to say to you. If anything that you've heard tonight has inspired you, and if you have thought to yourself, you know what, I don't have any particular skill, I don't have any particular talent, but I want to help, I want to be involved, you know what, all you have to do is show up. And we'll help you do the rest. So not only do these candidates need our financial support, but they need bodies. They need bodies to help out in those campaigns. And I encourage anybody here who's inspired to do that, to get involved. Besides that, we're a really cool group of people.
Yeah, we're pretty cool.
And we have a lot of fun. And we really love each other. But I digress. I do have a few notes. With no particular skills and no particular talent to bring to the table, I have been given the extraordinary honor of introducing our guest of honor tonight. But I have a couple of people that I want to thank before I begin. The first one is Donald Trump. Now, I knew you were going to laugh at that, but you know what? I really do want to thank Mr. Trump, because he single-handedly exposed the truth behind the corruption that is our political process, and with glee declared how his wealth and influence bought politicians and allowed him to manipulate them to do whatever it was that he wanted.
Right.
He was speaking the truth. And you know what else? He tapped into that fear, that underlying fear that the Republican Party had been pushing, and he just blew it up, and people flocked to him in droves. He had no particular policy, certainly no detailed policy, and he started out in a crowd of 17 candidates. and just started knocking them over like dominoes. And we're talking about candidates who were party establishment, who were well funded, and he just knocked them all out of the competition. And now he is the presumptive Republican nominee. Second person that I want to thank is Bernie Sanders. And we can clap on that. Because you know what Bernie Sanders did? He did the same thing that Donald Trump did. He exposed the Democrats. And the other thing that Bernie Sanders did was, besides having a lot of the same policy platforms that we have as Greens, he also refused to accept money from super PACs. He relied on small dollar donations, and God bless him, he ended up breaking fundraising records by soliciting small dollar donations and not accepting super PAC money. So you know what? You know what that said to me? It can be done. It can be done by regular people. He also exposed the corporate media. Because he, like Donald Trump, I put them both in this category, like Donald Trump, the media dismissed his candidacy out of hand. And the more he was dismissed, the larger his rallies got. Did you notice that? And so, while the media was trying to project Hillary, 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 the public was saying, Bernie, 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 Bernie. So that got me to thinking, and I think I might have even seen it in a meme somewhere, but remember that scene from The Wizard of Oz? You know, when they're going to see the wizard in Emerald City, and they're standing in front of the wizard and they're shaking because there's this all-powerful wizard and the room is filling with smoke and he's got the booming voice, and then somebody goes and pulls back that curtain. And wouldn't you know it, it's this crazy old man who's pulling all of these levers to try to make you believe that he's really something that he's not. Well, guess what? The curtain has been pulled back on our political process. And so what are we left with? Well, if you look at the two major parties, we are left with two candidates, both of whom are hugely unpopular. And the other thing that you have to realize is that there are 42% of Americans who are not affiliated with a political party. Do you know what we could do with 42% of the vote in the United States for President of the United States? So enter Dr. Jill Stein. Seems kind of appropriate, right? Dr. Stein is a physician who was in practice for 25 years and became very concerned about the environmental issues having an effect on health, and became an activist, and has been an activist for the last 20 years, and working with the Green Party. The thing that I like most about her campaign is she talks about that lesser of two evils. We really don't have to pick between the lesser of two evils. We really can look for the greater good. So what does Dr. Stein believe? Dr. Stein believes that perhaps we should get on board with the other industrialized countries who have determined that health care is a right of all citizens. And so she's in favor of universal single-payer health care. She believes in the elimination of student debt and making higher education available to all. She believes in the concept of a living wage and investments in education. She believes that we can create millions of jobs while creating clean energy solutions for this country, and is committed to a completely clean energy solution by 2030. Her foreign policies refer to a path to peace, and not the proliferation of the endless wars that this country is engaged in, and clearly nobody is stepping up and talking about stopping. Jill Stein her policies are a path to peace. So, I'm sure you would like to hear her tell you about these things, and so without further ado, I would like to introduce you the next President of the United States, Dr. Jill Stein.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Valerie. I feel like I don't need to say anything now. You said it, you know. That lady needs to run for office. And I feel like I've got all these surrogates now who can go out and speak for me. So let's just fan out. Like, let's just cover the country. I mean, this is the thing about being a Green. You know, we are very horizontal. And we sort of all bring each other up. You know, we are a team, and it is just, to me, so exciting to know that there are so many of us. You know, you hear Bernie Sanders quoted all the time saying, it's not the man, it's the movement. And I feel like this is what we've been doing in the Green Party for quite a while. We are a movement. We're a movement that's been ahead of the curve, and that curve has caught up to us now in a big way. So we were ahead of the curve on green energy and on climate change and doing what it takes to combat it. We were ahead of the curve on free public higher education and education as a right. We were ahead of the curve on healthcare as a human right. Everybody in, nobody out, with an improved Medicare for all system that actually costs the same as what we're paying right now, except it covers everybody from head to toe and from cradle to grave, so everything is included, because instead of funding paper pushing and bureaucracy and red tape, we're actually putting healthcare dollars into healthcare,
Yes.
like we should. We believe in immigrant rights. We believe that immigrants are citizens of the world, that we are all citizens of this planet together. And for those people who say that, you know, we've got this immigration crisis, we say the most important thing we can do to fix this crisis is to stop causing it in the first place. For example, which has displaced millions of peasants, and not only peasants and farmers, but also millions of factory workers. So, you know, we say let's end the NAFTA and let's have fair trade agreements instead of these corporate free trade agreements, which are not free for ordinary mortals. They're just a free ride for corporations that throw us off the cliff with these free trade agreements. To end the immigration crisis, we say let's end the racist war on drugs.
Right.
Yes.
Because marijuana, and I can say this as a doctor, marijuana is a substance which is dangerous because it's illegal. If you get my drift, it is not inherently dangerous relative to, for example, tobacco and alcohol, which are far more dangerous but are legal. So here's an executive action, actually, that the president could take right now or on her first day in office. And I can think of one woman candidate who would do this, and not the other one. So what she could do would be to tell the Drug Enforcement Agency to do something really, really radical. And that would be to use science in determining what substances will actually be listed and which ones will not.
Yes.
Because the minute you use science, marijuana and cannabis come off of that list.
Yes.
And by the way, not only do we treat substance abuse as a health problem, a public health problem, because some substance use is recreational and is not a health problem. and it should not be treated as a criminal problem. And the minute we do that, we must liberate all these hundreds of thousands of people who are locked up in jail for non-violent substance use, a victimless so-called crime, which is not a crime at all.
Exactly.
We need to return these people to their families, to their communities, and ensure that they have the right to a job, they have the right to education, they have a right to housing, and they have a right to vote. We need to restore the vote to felons who have served their time, especially when they've been unjustly incarcerated to start with. Let me say a word also about being ahead of the curve, as we've been as Greens, on education. Let's talk a little bit about education, because some of the other candidates mentioned that. And I so agree. It's time to teach to the whole student for lifetime learning, not to a high-stakes multiple choice test, which is a disgrace to the cause of education. It's also time to put education in the hands of communities and educators, not in the hands of corporations that are trying to profiteer through high-stakes testing or through privatizing our public school systems, which should remain public. And we also need to take education out of the hands of these imposters like basketball players and computer geeks who pretend to be specialist educators, and you may know who I'm talking about. Arne Duncan, the Secretary of Education, until very recently, who, you know, what was his specialty? You know, his specialty was playing basketball and then I guess running a business or something. What exactly does that do to qualify you to be an educator? Exactly nothing. And the proof of the pudding here is that the likes of Arne Duncan and Barack Obama, how do they educate their children? Not by doing what they are forcing all the other children of this nation to do. They take their kids out of these degraded public school systems and they put them in classrooms where there are a very small number of students to the teacher. It's a low student-to-teacher ratio. This is what Finland does, and they pay their teachers well, by the way, and respect them. And they don't use this friggin' high-stakes testing, which is not good for especially the challenged learners, who are the ones that this education reform was supposed to be benefiting in the first place. So forget the high-stakes testing. Let's go back to educating to the whole student for lifetime learning. And just a quick word in case I don't like to repeat myself for those who've heard it before, so I'm going to be brief, but you can't say it enough. We can fix the economy and we can fix the climate crisis together in one fell swoop, and we can do it now and we can do it quickly. When Pearl Harbor was bombed at the outset of the Second World War, it took us 6 months to transform the economy into this emergency footing for the national crisis. And people understood we had a national crisis when Pearl Harbor was bombed, and everybody was, you know, ready to do what it takes. Well, right now we have a crisis that makes Pearl Harbor look like small potatoes. Because we're not talking about one harbor, we are talking about all harbors, and not just harbors, we're talking about population centers all around the world. With this latest report that was described by the NOAA official, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration official, that showed up at an annual conference of the insurance industry, and what she reported was that they had just gotten this oh my god report from the West Antarctic ice sheet, that it's breaking up far faster than anybody had ever thought. And the bottom line here, that they're going to be issuing specific reports about this report that they just got. So NOAA's going to be issuing reports over the course of the next 2 years. So you heard it first here in the Green Party, because this is what we've been talking about. And by the way, this wasn't just her. This is the same thing that Jim Hansen said, the foremost climate scientist. This is what his data said about a year ago, except for him, the day of reckoning was a little bit further away. He was saying 5 decades. And what they're saying now from NOAA was we're talking like by 2050, we may begin to see 9 feet of sea level rise because of this very rapid rate, if we continue our current trajectory. So this is like wipeout potential, not just potential, it's pretty clearly wipeout. This is going over the waterfall, folks. We don't want to get to that point. And as I mentioned earlier tonight at the other lovely restaurant, that we have that we have over a dozen, it's like about 14 or 16 nuclear power plants that are located at sea level right now. So you add 9 feet of sea level rise and you go Fukushima all up and down the coasts. And in order to prevent that, there are 2 things we can do. We can either start to decommission our nuclear power plants right now, because it takes them a while to cool down so that you can move the stuff. And we should do that anyhow, by the way.
Right.
It's time to decommission those nuclear power plants because you got earthquake faults, and you have storms, and you have tsunamis, and history has really proven that this is not a risk we can take. And besides, it's too expensive, it's dangerous, and there's no place to put the waste.
That's right.
We have alternatives that we need right now. In fact, we have all that we need right now. We can, in fact, move to 100% clean renewable energy by 2030. And all it takes really is being honest with the American people. In my experience, all you have to do is to get to the microphone, and Greens win all the time. But the reason it's hard to mobilize around this is because people are not being honest, and that is our elected officials, are not leveling with the American people. So we will level with the American people. We are leveling with the American people, and we can fix this crisis right now in a way that not only averts disaster, but it moves us to the kind of society that we want, which is equitable, which is just, and which is sustainable. And we can go there right now with the Green New Deal, like we did during the Great Depression, with the New Deal. So this isn't rocket science. This is stuff we can do right now. We can actually rescue our future, and in rescuing our future, we take ourselves to a far better place than where we are at right now. So we can do it, and the best news is that it pays for itself. People often say, so how are you going to pay for this? Well, the good news is it pays for itself just in the health savings that happen when you eliminate pollution. When you eliminate pollution, your rates of asthma, of cancers, of heart attacks and strokes, and other diseases too, but those are the big ones, they take a nosedive. We get so much healthier that our health savings alone, and when you add in a healthy food system as well, and we start subsidizing healthy food instead of subsidizing crap food that makes you really sick. Then the benefits are even all the more powerful. So this pays for itself enormously, and that's just on the health basis. The other way it pays for itself is that the wars for oil become obsolete, and we don't need them. Cannot be justified. They cannot be justified when you can't, when they can't make the argument that this is national security. No way is this national security. I mean, we're not getting more secure fighting these wars. We're just actually poisoning the waters against us. So this is a win-win-win. Doing the green thing here revives our economy. It turns the tide on climate change. It makes the friggin' wars for oil obsolete, and we get healthy in the meantime. So we can do this. Don't accept for a minute that we can't, or that it's somehow, too complicated, it can't be done. It can be done. The key ingredient here is what's already in this room, which is the courage of our convictions. Having the courage of our convictions to stand up for what is right and what is just and what is absolutely essential if we're going to survive, that is the key thing. And it's also contagious. I have to say, last election 4 years ago, and in every election before that, and I have been running for office without interruption for the last 15 years, something like that. I think I took one election off doing climate stuff or something like that. But to me, running for office is really indistinguishable from just living everyday life and fighting the fight that we fight. And people often say, oh, it must be so hard running for president. And I usually say, well, actually, it's much easier than doing what you do, just fighting these battles every day, finding a job in a jobless economy, getting out of debt, fighting for health care. We are all in this together as a very unifying and transformative fight at a very transformative moment. And the key ingredient here is standing up to this propaganda campaign, and I wouldn't hesitate to call it that. When people tell you that, oh no, you will be a spoiler, you gotta vote against what you fear instead of for what you believe, that is nonsense. Don't let it slow you down. Don't let it stop you. And, we have a few sort of standard arguments that we use, and you can find them in my interview on Democracy Now! This morning, or on the, the interview with Alan Chartock just after that. It's like everybody wants to talk about this right now, and I think it's a really healthy and therapeutic thing to do. If we don't talk about this until the 11th hour, people will be paralyzed by fear. But by talking about it now, we can actually clarify what a propaganda campaign this is. It does not hold water. The lesser evil actually creates the greater evil because, because it creates the economic misery that is lifting up Donald Trump. That's where the phenomenon of Donald Trump comes from. Really stressed working class and middle class people who no longer have, white people I should say, who no longer have the secure future that they used to have, because this is what African Americans have been living with really forever. Now suddenly white working people are there and they're kind of freaking out about it. But they have shown that they would prefer to have voted for Bernie Sanders than Donald Trump, and would have supported Sanders in far greater numbers. So it tells you the real solution here is a politics of integrity. It's the real progressive solutions that provide jobs and good wages and healthcare and education as human rights. And what I would add to Bernie's agenda is a foreign policy based on international law and human rights and diplomacy.
Yes.
Say, the future is really there for our taking. It's time to forget the lesser evil, fight for the greater good, like our lives depend on it, because they do. We can have an America and a world that works for all of us, that puts people, planet, and peace over profit. The power to create that world is not far away. It's not in hopes. It's not in dreamland. It's right here and now. We can create this world by standing up and standing together and refusing to take no for an answer. Together, we are unstoppable.
Yes.
Thank you.